Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our webinar titled Gaining Greater Insight with Microsoft Power BI and Web Mapping. This is a CAD Corp webinar. We're expecting it to be about 40 to 45 minutes today, just to give you an idea. But we will, that's the plan. So before we begin, we will be recording the webinar today, so we will send you that recording afterwards. So if there's any colleagues or anybody else that you know who wasn't able to join it, or if you want to have a look at it again later, then don't worry, we'll send you a recording which you can share internally as well. We'll have some questions at the end. So you'll see in the webinar interface, you'll find a questions panel. If you have a look there, you might need to expand it. And that's where you can ask all of your questions. So do ask questions throughout. And we've got some time at the end where we'll answer as many as we possibly can. So do use that. We're really keen to hear from you and to know what kind of questions you're asking. So that's really important. When the webinar closes, there'll be an exit survey, just a few questions. It'll be really good if you can complete those, and it will just allow us to continue to produce relevant and good quality webinars for you. So do let us know and give us that feedback. We really appreciate it. My name is Fergus Craig. My title is Business Development Manager here at CAD Corp. I look after all of our commercial customers and our housing customers. I'm going to be joined today with my colleague Sandeep. Sandeep's in our pre-sales team, and Sandeep's going to be doing a technical demonstration about how everything fits together, and using some case studies to some use cases to look at how this can be implemented in different sectors and different environments and different areas of the world as well. So we'll hand over to Sandeep in a few minutes. We did present a webinar based on Power BI earlier in the year. If you did attend that webinar, don't worry, this is different. There will be a lot of overlap, so what I'll say to introduce things in just a few minutes will be similar to what was mentioned last time, but when I hand over to Sandeep, that demonstration element of the webinar today is all new. There's all new concepts and demonstrations and dashboards that we're going to be showing you. So if you did join us last time and you've come back again today, that's great. Welcome. Do stick around, because you will be seeing some new things and some new features as well. So yeah, do wait for that. So I will talk a bit about CAD Corp and introduce CAD Corp as an organization for those of you who don't know us. I can see that several CAD Corp customers are with us today, which is great, but there's also some organizations who might not be familiar with CAD Corp technology. So I'll introduce CAD Corp technology that's involved in this integration, which is CAD Corp Sys Webmap. And then I'll introduce Power BI. I imagine many of you know what Power BI is, but just in case you don't, I'll briefly introduce that. And then I'll talk about how CAD Corp Sys Webmap for Power BI brings those two technologies together and the features of that. And then I'll hand over to Sandeep, who will talk about the different use cases, show you different dashboards and different ways in which CAD Corp Sys for Webmap for Power BI can be integrated, and the advantages and benefits of that. We've got some features which we're planning to add in the future as well, so I'll mention those, and then we'll have some questions. So like I said, do send your questions via the question panel, and we will answer those at the end. So CAD Corp is a UK-based software development company. We create the CAD Corp Spatial Information System, which we call CAD Corp Sys. And CAD Corp Sys is a web, mobile, and desktop mapping application, or GIS. That's a Geographical Information System. So it's a way in which you can visualize and analyze and report on data that has a geographical or a spatial component to it. So it might be an address or a postcode or a coordinate or anything that you can locate that data on the Earth's surface. Then you can utilize and use that within a GIS and a web mapping application. We work in lots of different industry sectors. The ones listed here: housing, local government, emergency services, insurance and infrastructure are the key industry sectors, and many of you will be from these sectors today. But we also have customers that are in other sectors. In the UK, we talk to our customers directly, and we have partners who use CAD Corp Sys technology and make that accessible to their customers around the rest of the world as well. So we're going to start with a poll today. It's really good to get your feedback, and it's good to start as to be interactive. So you should see that on your screen now. Does your organization use Microsoft Power BI? You should be able to click either yes or no. We'll just wait for those poll results to come in. I can see that a few of you have voted already, which is great. And it's really good to get this kind of feedback to get an understanding about how Microsoft Power BI, if it's already used in an organization. We know that some customers, Microsoft Power BI is deployed right across the organization. You've got different reports and dashboards showing some really good visualizations. Others are just beginning in this journey, and maybe it might just be deployed in one or two teams. And lots of organizations haven't used Microsoft Power BI, but there might be other BI applications that you're using within your organization as well. So it looks like the results are coming in, and yeah, many of you have used Microsoft Power BI, which is really interesting to see. And actually, it's bang on 50-50, which is really interesting. So 50% of you have said yes, and 50% of you have said no. So yeah, that's really interesting results. So I'm just going to close the poll. Thank you very much for completing that. It's good insight. So CAD Corp Sys Webmap, just to introduce the technology that that is utilized in this integration to start with. So CAD Corp Sys provides, as I mentioned, web, mobile, and desktop mapping applications. And CAD Corp Sys Webmap is our most popular web mapping application. And this is an interactive and dynamic access to geographical data. It allows you to pan and zoom on a map as you'd expect from a mapping application. But in addition to that, you can analyze the data that's in and made available. So you can click on features and see all of the attributes associated with that. You can obviously turn on and turn off different map features, and you can carry out spatial analysis. So you can find out what features are close to others. We've got lots of tools which you can drop into here, like local knowledge and edit. You can even edit core data via CAD Corp Sys Webmap. So it's a really powerful web mapping application, which is a corporate solution enabling you to connect dynamically to internal data sources and to share those either just within the organization, externally with other organizations you may be working with, or to members of the public. So there's all of that features are available within CAD Corp Sys Webmap. It can either be cloud hosted and managed by CAD Corp, or it can be installed locally. So it can be installed locally on your infrastructure or in your cloud environment. So it's really flexible in terms of how CAD Corp Sys Webmap's deployed. The analyzing GI data provides knowledge, and that improves the decision-making process. So we think that CAD Corp Sys Webmap as a front-end, easy-to-use, intuitive web mapping application is really powerful in itself to be able to communicate what's going on geographically to lots of different people. It's a very powerful application. But not everybody has CAD Corp Sys Webmap, which we fully appreciate. So there's a couple of options available to you, and that's absolutely fine. If you don't have CAD Corp Sys Webmap, you may find that now is the right time to invest in CAD Corp Sys Webmap, and with this extra feature that we're going to show you in a second, CAD Corp Sys Webmap for Power BI might just enable you to produce that business case and get the approval to invest in the technology. So do talk to us further if you feel that you're in that position. I'd be really pleased to discuss the options with you. Alternatively, CAD Corp can provide, as a hosted package, just including the relevant components that you need for CAD Corp Sys Webmap for Power BI. So if you're not at the stage to invest in a web mapping application, or you don't already have CAD Corp Sys Webmap deployed at your organization, do again come and talk to us, because we can just provide you with the relevant components to be able to drop in and make this visualization with Power BI happen. So there's a couple of options there for you, which should allow everybody access to this. Microsoft Power BI is a business intelligence application. So it's an application. It's either desktop or web-based, and it's a way in which you can connect to hundreds of different data sources potentially. Whether it's an Excel spreadsheet or a database or a CSV, or there's hundreds of different things you can connect to, web services and all sorts. And it enables you to model and visualize data. As you can see in the screenshot here, there's lots of different visualizations that you can choose from, lots of graphs and charts, and some really good ways to be able to communicate your data in an easy to understand way for everybody internally or maybe externally to have access to and understand the metrics that you're dealing with. It's widely accessible. It's really easy to use as an end user, and even to set up as an administrator. And this is something that Sandeep will show you in a minute. It's really easy to include all of these visualizations. The inputs, there's a lot of crossover with data that CAD Corp Sys can connect to, such as Excel, Microsoft SQL Server, Postgres, PostGIS databases. So you're probably utilizing one of those data sources or maybe something else. And there's a lot of crossover in terms of how you can connect to data from CAD Corp Sys and Microsoft Power BI. So that's really good to know. So CAD Corp Sys Webmap for Power BI is the functionality to be able to drop in a CAD Corp Sys Webmap and embed it within a Power BI report. So that enables you to have a mapping component next to all of the other data visualizations that you're utilizing within Power BI. So you're adding geographical information directly into your Microsoft Power BI report. So this is what we're going to be showing you today. The spatial point data within the Webmap component is interactive with the Power BI visuals as well. So you can click on the visuals and it will zoom to that location on a map, or maybe one of the visuals is controlling many point items, many data items, and it will zoom to the extents of those. So there's a lot of interaction between it. It's not just a map being dropped in, which is really powerful. How we provide this to our customers is via a licensed custom visual. So CAD Corp can provide you with a licensed custom visual, which connects your your CAD Corp Sys Webmap through into Microsoft Power BI. So that's how it fits together. And again, Sandeep will demonstrate that, and you'll see that visual being used in just a minute. But that's the bit you need to make it all work, really. So there's lots of features of this integration. One of the key ones is that if you're familiar with CAD Corp Sys technology, you'll know that the technology supports lots of different coordinate reference systems. And the coordinate reference system is the way that the data's plotted on the map, basically. So it doesn't matter if you're in Great Britain or if you're in Europe or Australia. There's lots of different ways that data can be plotted on a map, and CAD Corp Sys technology supports lots and lots of these. If you're in Great Britain, one of the key advantages of using CAD Corp Sys technology is that it supports OSGB, which is the coordinate reference system that Ordnance Survey data is held in. So you can connect to your Ordnance Survey base map and bring that through within your Power BI visual, which is great because that allows you to bring in master map, your master map data, your imagery data, and all of these really detailed mapping data sets that you might have access to in the UK. If you're a government organization, you'll have access to those. If you're a commercial or a housing organization, you might have invested a lot of money into these very detailed data sets. So to be able to embed them in different applications around the organization and make full advantage of that investment is really important. So that's one of the key advantages. You can get that Ordnance Survey data into your Microsoft Power BI report. The map markers can be selected from lots of different colors, so you can pick and choose. There's a bit of variety in there. There's a mouse coordinate tracker, so when you move the mouse across the map, you can see the coordinates, whatever coordinate reference system you're in. And the pan and zoom can either be controlled via the mouse wheel, or you can drop on the pan and zoom controls to be able to click as required. The layer control is another one of the really key features within this integration. The layer control enables you to be able to switch on and off overlays or map data layers behind the Power BI data that you're visualizing in the application. So you can see in the screenshot on the slide here, we've got some KDE hotspots, which will give some geographical relevance to the data that you're displaying. It could be some themed polygons. It could be any data that you hold within your GIS can be dropped in the background, and the user of the reports can have a layer control to turn on and turn off those overlays as they desire. We'll also have map tips in there as well, so you can hover over points in the Power BI environment and you can see attributes that are held against those points. You can also have hyperlinks in there as well, so you can link off to other documents, websites, or reports as you've got configured. So I'm going to hand over to my colleague Sandeep now, and Sandeep, as I've mentioned, is going to demonstrate this integration and show you how this all fits together, and he's going to also show you some use cases and some different scenarios and where a Power BI report will be of benefit potentially to your organization. Thanks, Sandeep.
Thanks, Fergus. Now I'm going to demo the CAD Corp Sys Webmap for Power BI. As you can see on my screen, we have the Power BI desktop loaded. So the first thing we're going to do is going to add some data. So I'm going to use my recent sources, and you can then see it brings up the list of all the different sources I've connected to. As Fergus mentioned in his PowerPoint, you can see we've got different connections to different types of data. So I'm going to use the properties CSV in this example and connect. What Power BI does, this will connect to that data, then brings up a sample data. So you can just view what's in each of the columns. And you can see this is a property example. So you've got address, you've got different columns representing different data set, which you can use to visualize in Power BI. But the most important thing is, for any data you want it to work with the CAD Corp visual tool, is to make sure your data has coordinates, as Fergus mentioned in PowerPoint. In this example, we got easting and northing, but you can have latitude and longitude as well. So I've made sure I've got those in there, so I can press load. This will then add the table into Power BI. And next, what we want to do is add the actual tooling. So you can see in the visualization section that we don't have the tool, so you have to load this in. So when you hover over the three dots, you get that get more visuals. So if you click on that and then you scroll down to where it says left click and click down on to import a visual from a file, select that, locate your folder, which is I have, which is my Power BI, and I have my tool in there. You can see it's called the CAD Corp Sys Webmap for Power BI. Press open. And it says it's been loaded, and then you'll see at the bottom it's been added in, and you can see it's a nice red icon. So if I select that, it gets added in. It's bigger, and then what we're going to do is just add in our easting for the X and northing. And for the map tips, so these are the map tips. So when you hover over your points, you get the information regarding the postcode and also a URL. So you'll see also in the little box that it gives you instructions of what you need to do once you've added your easting and northing. So what you need to do is you select or click on the format option. It brings up some options for you. So the one we're going to look at first is map settings. So we expand that out. It asks you for a service URL. As Fergus mentioned, this is the URL to your web map location. So in this example, I have my URL in there, and literally all you need to do is copy and paste the URL that you're going to use. And then the map name is the name of the map you want to use in the background of your CAD Corp visual tool. So in this example, mine's just called Power BI. And you'll see automatically it connects, and then you'll see on my screen now that it's now changed to having a map in background and all my points located as well. What you can do is you can now next choose the marker color you want to change to. So you get a few options. So I'm going to pick blue, and you can see instantly change color. And then we can add in a couple of tools that you can use within the CAD Corp visual tool. So the pan zoom, if you turn that on, it gives the options of using the plus and minus to zoom in on the map, or you can use the mouse itself by using the left button click and using the scroll. We can also then turn on the layer switcher. This is very important because it gives you access to the data sets that you're currently viewing. So in this example, I've got the Ordnance Survey Open Zoom Stack data, which is a free data set, but you can then have this turning on and off against your aerial imagery as an example, and you can see that. So you can flick between the two. So the user gets option what they want to turn on and off, and you can also then turn on the additional data as well. So if I turn that off, you can see that all my data behind's been turned up, but I still got my background mapping. I'm going to leave it as the Ordnance Survey Open Zoom Stack background. And then lastly, you have the mouse position, which at the bottom right, you'll see there's got 0, 0, but as you hover over it, it gives you back the coordinates. Lastly, what we want to do is expand the map tips, and all we're going to do, you can change the font and color, but I'm leaving it as default. Is all I'm going to do is just tick on field name prefix. That just means that for the two columns I created, it will give you the name of the column, then the value. And again, I'm just using the controls. As you can see, I hover over, you can see that. I'm going to now zoom into the map as well. So as we're going in, you can see for a free data set, it does give you a lot of coverage and a lot of detail. But as I get to really detailed and zoomed right in, you can see I've got the Ordnance Survey master map data, which gives you really clear indication of all the different objects or data within your given area. So if I hover over that point and if I select that URL, you can see very quickly that I've got the name of the postcode, but I've also created a hyperlink which has an icon, and it tells me I'm going to open the website. So in this example, what we're opening up is our CAD Corp website because that's what I linked to, but you can link it to any other source you want. So once you've done that, you can then build up this report. So you can add in other visual tools, you can connect to other tables and use that in your report. Once you build your report, you may want to share this. So to share this, you use the publish button. The publish button will then publish this to a web which other users can get access to. So I'm now going to give you a few examples of how you can use the CAD Corp visual tool in different reports. So if we go to our web version and we just change this really quickly. So view. So the first example we're going to look at is a tree maintenance report. And as you can see on the right, you see we've got the Ordnance Survey Zoom Stack background mapping, and then we can also have the aerial. So what I'm going to do is just change it to aerial so we can see something different. And then again, if you don't want the background data, you can leave that on and off. I'm going to leave it on in this example. And this example report is basically the number of trees that need to be maintained within a given areas. So that could be your own areas or wherever you like. Data can, it's, you know, the coverage is depending on what the data you have, and also the overall cost. So the user then will come in and then gets options of what they want to look at. So in this first example, we're going to just turn on a woodland area that we're interested in, which is honeycomb wood. So if I select that, you see automatically as well, the map zooms into that location and also only selected those trees. So if I zoomed out a little bit, you can then see how that's changed. And also because we're using the aerial imagery, you can see that the data is also being filtered to the only trees that want to be maintained for this year, not all the trees. So you can then see there's other data not actually included as well. As you can see, if you hover over, you can see all the features. You can then look at individual months as well, which they may want to drill down. So if I look at what's happening in May, you can then see actually May 1, the maintenance status says it's done. There was actually 7 trees and it's cost us £530. Well, that's quite interactive as well because we're connecting to, in this example, connected to a live database. As their work's been done and data gets updated, that information gets updated as well. So it's something that can be reused by organizations who want to keep up to date of what's happening with their maintenance. The next example and look at is mist bin collections. So this is normally done where you people have reported miscollection for bins or any other type which may have a location and a time and date. And in this example, again, we've got the Ordnance Survey data in the background, and you can pick and choose again what you want to have on and off. I'm going to leave everything as it is. But in this example, where actually you can filter by date, so the user can come in and change the date from when they want to look at it and what they're looking at, or you can use a scroll as well. So this is set up in a way that if they zoomed up, for example, till end of May, it gives you a breakdown of the type of recycling, so the 3 types that we had, the numbers, the total cost it's cost them to recollect these missed bin collections, and also at the bottom right, you'll see the list of all the individual addresses and the nearest recycling center. But what you can also do, you can actually, if we wanted an example, is zoom out, and then we can actually select an area. So in this example, is selecting Anfield, and then I'm going to do is zoom in into this location, and you can see, if we zoom in, there's a little area here where number of addresses have reported missed bin collection. And what we can do is, as you can see, if I'm hovering over, we've had an hyperlink link to Street View. So in this example, what we're connecting is using the coordinates here to actually then view that in Street View, so they can, as a person, can visually see what's actually happening within that road. So the reason this could be that the bins might not be collected is maybe it's the vehicle type was too big, or narrow road, or that could be something that could be checked against the original route and checked. Maybe there may be some updates of why they might be missed, so it doesn't happen in the future as well. So it gives you options to add and look at, view different things. And again, as you can see, the numbers change as well. Go back just to view. So the next report we want to look at is our properties. So this is very useful because you have any sort of assets that you might have. You may have a lot of data coming in from different sources. So as Fergus mentioned in the PowerPoint, you can have it in databases, flat files, you can have it from different sources or web services. And this is where you can use the CAD Corp desktop and actually collect that information together and add more value to it. So in this example, again, we've got the Ordnance Survey background mapping. You can turn layers on and off, and you can choose what you want. But in this version, we're using a search bar here, so the user will come in and actually want to look at a particular property. So as they type in a property, so in this example, look at 11 Goldstone Road and search, then that will bring up information regarding that one property. And then the person can come and view the information, so it gets a full address. It can see what their rating is, their overall performance. And again, these are all linked to a live database. So if the change in updated data, so will that information. And again, you can see its performance is almost very low, and you can see why, because there's had a lot of repairs, its energy efficiency isn't that good. It doesn't have a high value market. And also then you can investigate a bit more and look at other properties where there might be changes. The next one we're going to look at is the report for ground maintenance. So in ground maintenance, it's quite useful because you may want to see the bill of quantities of all your assets within a given area, or in this example, we look at different estates. So all the work for this was done, the data capture, the calculations, the setup was all done in CAD Corp's desktop. And normally what happens here is, as with other software, is that this all probably gets produced into a PDF report and a spreadsheet, which then is given to managers or potentially to third-party people, contractors. But the advantage of this is that you can actually take that same data and actually plug it into an interactive report where you can share this out, as I said, with other people and contractors, and they don't have to, as changes are made, the data is updated as you can view. So again, you've got that Ordnance Survey background mapping, but in this time we zoomed right in to see the master map because we want to see individual detail. And what the user then can do is go in and look at different types of estates, so they can click through and look at a different estate if they want to. And then it also gives you a breakdown of the asset types. So if I hovered over, for example, this screen, which is the tree, you can see it gives you the percentage overall, but also then the total cost of all the trees in there is 300. You also get the total cost, but then also you can have a table like we have here, which is a breakdown of individual assets. So if we looked at a tree, you can then see it gives you the location of the tree and also the cost and what work was done. And also we've applied a color scheme which is based on the status. So if it's green, it just could tell the person looking at it that the work is actually being completed. Yellow tells you that it's actually due soon, so they can just check what's happening. And red means it's actually required. It's, you know, it should be done by now, so they can actually check individual estates and see statuses of different assets and compare it to any sort of reports from any your customers. So that's quite very useful as well to see that. And again, as it's all interactive as well and can be updated. The next example we're going to give you is what fire services may use it for. In this example, compared to the others, we had a single map, and this we have two maps because this then gives you a bit more information because they're linking the station with incident data. And again, all this data and analysis was done in a CAD Corp software using a module called Workload Modeler, which analyzes the assets and incidences and all the fire stations. So we can then look at individual stations. So here we have at the top, for example, in Handsworth, this is the station. It gives you the number of call-outs it's made, incidents it's attended, and again, these are all be linked to live databases if they're being updated. Then on the left for each station, it also gives you a breakdown of the total week of appliances or fire engines called out per hour. So in simple terms, that just means that over the week from Monday to Sunday at between 7 p.m. to 8 p.m, only 4 times was a appliance or a fire engine called out. So they can actually see what's happening per hour. And then you can also have a breakdown according linked to that, which is all the incidences as well that were they attended. So if we just change it to a different one, for example, we went to Aston, you can then see the data changes, the number of incidences have changed, and also the location, and the graphs are responsive. So if we look at, for the Aston one, we look at the incidences, you can then see that they can look at individual incidences. So if I select one, for example, you can see that the map will then, if I wanted to just zoom in a bit just to have a look at what's actually going on. So you can see there's the incident, and then it can tell you what the times were, whether it passed or failed its benchmark, and that's to do with some analysis that was done in CAD Corp's desktop, and the type of incident, but also it gives you the number of appliances or fire engines attended. So that's very useful because the fire services may want to know if, for example, you may have 2 appliances or fire engines is set, but they may not be from the same station. So that might give them an indication of potential work or a different analysis that may want to do. And if I flick through, you can see if I selected a different one, you can then see if that one it's a factory incident, and also it's failed because the time was high. And then that's very useful because they can view and look at different stations and incidences and see what's actually happening and individually check what's going on. So for these examples so far, we've all used UK dataset, but as Fergus mentioned, we can use data from anywhere in the world. So the last example I wanted to give you is a report, basically for Hamburg tree survey for the year. And the mapping background in this is just using the OpenStreets map. So you can then have a view, and the points are basically placed as not easting and northing, but latitude and longitude. And then again, you can have this set up with all different information. So in this case, we can look at user, we're looking at the month, and we can then break down what's happening, the statuses currently in May, and then gives you a breakdown of the different counts for which ones are good, which ones are bad, poor, gives you individual ones if you want to select that, but also you can look at the total percentage and the cost of them to do the tree survey, but also any sort of maintenance as well. So then you can look at that. or if they wanted to then look at, okay, we're only interested in only the very poor ones and that, and you can see that gets filtered as well. And again, the map resizes to that location, and you can see here it says 27, and you can see the total cost and also the percentage out of the total cost for the work for over the year. So then as that's interactive as well, and you can use that. So that's the end of my demonstration. I'm now going to hand back over to Fergus.
Excellent, thanks, Sandeep. So Sandeep went through several different use cases of how CAD Corp's Webmap for Power BI can be used. Some of the key advantages Sandeep mentioned are that capability to support any coordinate reference system that CAD Corp Sys technology supports. So those of us that are in the UK, that includes Ordnance Survey map data being placed right into your Power BI report, which is a really powerful feature of this. And one of the other key features is having those overlays in the background, and the end user has the capability to turn on and turn off whatever overlays the administrator set up to include in that example. Do ask more questions. I can see quite a lot of questions have come through, but do ask the question, use the question panel to ask more questions, and we'll come on to those in just a minute. So in the future, we've got a few planned features that we're really keen to include in the near future, which we obviously couldn't demonstrate today, but these are things we're currently working on. So the first one is the capability to have a vector circle feature for display, which can be colored or resized according to the value of attributes. So if you've got a one of your attributes, one of your columns in your data set has a value such as number of incidents at that location, or the sum of arrears, for example, then the vector circle will actually act as a theme and can change the color depending on the attribute, or even the size. So it can be like a graduated theme as well. So that's an additional feature which will allow much more spatial analysis within the application in the environment. So that's something to look out for in the very near future as well. And we'll also, as you saw, you can click on the visuals within Microsoft Power BI, and that would interact with the map itself. So so you could zoom to a particular point, a particular data point, or a group of data points, and that will zoom the map to that location. But what we're planning to add again in the future is the interactive nature of the application, but the other way. So you click on the features of the map, and that will filter the data in the other visuals as well. So we'll think of some great examples of how that can be used in different use cases, and I'm sure we'll be keen to tell you about those in the future as well. So do get in touch with us if you think this can be useful in your organization. We're really keen to hear from you. So do get in touch with your CAD Corp account manager. It might be myself or one of my colleagues. If you're not currently in touch with CAD Corp or you don't have an account manager, please do get in touch anyway. Email or give us a call. We're all up and running just now, so we're all contactable. If you're really keen and you want to continue the conversation today, the survey at the end of the webinar will have the option to tick that, and you can let us know in the survey that you're really keen to continue the conversation, or either myself or one of my colleagues will get in touch with you today. So do let us know. So let's have a look at some of these questions. We've got lots of questions, and I can see that some of them are very technical. So do excuse me if we don't answer all of them today. So one of them asks, how do you get the polygons into a report? So that's a really interesting question, and we're expecting people to ask this question. So as you saw, CAD Corp Sys Webmap for Power BI is based on point items. So it's a point item data set, and if you want to bring in other polygons, such as you saw in some of those use cases, such as the grounds maintenance one, you can bring those in as other overlays in the background. So you can bring in your polygon items as separate overlays with that layer control, give users the ability to turn them on and turn them off. But the interactive nature of CAD Corp Sys Webmap for Power BI is based on those point items currently. So that's how it all works. We've got a few other questions here as well. We've got one, can you confirm where the data is sourced from in the map view example? I think that question was asked in the first example when we were looking at the tree demo data. So yeah, I can't remember exactly what data sets are in there, but assuming you're talking about the tree data itself, tree data is a really interesting one. That example was based around the organization collecting their own tree data. So many of our customers in local government or in housing have a responsibility to manage their trees. So they will survey the locations and they'll collect that tree data. We know that many local government organizations will make that data available. So and there's also commercial products out there where you can invest in tree data as well. So there's lots of ways you can get access to tree data, which is great. One really good question here, actually. What would you say is the biggest difference between having access to SIS Webmap Visual compared to the default Bing mapping visualization? So yeah, thanks for that question. That's a good one. So it's obviously Power BI is a Microsoft product, so you can get Microsoft Bing mapping in there quite easily. So there's quite a lot of differences, but the two key ones I believe are the fact that you can bring in if you're in the UK, you can bring in Ordnance Survey maps to bring in your Great Britain coverage of Ordnance Survey maps. So that gives you the capability to bring in master map topography data, that really detailed building outline data for the whole country. So it's a consistent data set for the whole country. It gives you that capability to bring that level of detail in, which you wouldn't get from other mapping applications. And the overlay control as well. So it enables you to connect the integration with your corporate web mapping application and allows you to bring in lots of other data sets and overlays. So you might have performed some hotspot analysis. You might have some KDE hotspots in there, which you can drop in behind the point data. So I think they're the two differences: is the overlays and the OS data, or any other, your local mapping data, because you can support lots of different coordinate reference systems. There's a few really technical questions and about SQL Server, ODBC plugins, and HTTPS. I'm going to be honest, I don't know the answer to those in enough detail, so I think what will be best is that one of my technical colleagues get in touch with you directly to answer those questions. One here, would this work using URL from OneDrive or ShareDrive? I'll find out for you and get back to you on that one. And there's a few other questions as well, which we'll get back to you directly on. But like I say, do continue the conversation with us if you want to know more about CAD Corp SIS Web Map for Power BI, and there'll be a few questions after the webinar. But thank you for joining us today. It's been a really successful webinar. Do join us again for future webinars. We've got several planned going forwards. Thank you and goodbye.